Kia ora, and welcome to Wednesday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect Aotearoa. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz, and today we lead with news the world is bracing for the US to start a $1.4 trillion trade war tomorrow. The US says it's ready to start hostilities, supposedly with a 20% across-the-board levy. Other governments have their retaliation plans ready. Americans are rushing to buy cars they can afford. But first, the overnight dairy auction came in better than the derivatives market had signalled, with an overall rise of 1.1% in US dollar terms, up 3.2% in New Zealand dollar terms. Whole milk powder prices held steady and avoided the expected dip. Skim milk powder prices rose more than expected, but volumes were light, as expected in this part of the dairy season, but actually lower than this time last year. Keeping demand up was bidding from China, while the recent new interest from Europe basically held. Nothing today will change the current farm gate milk price forecasts. In the US, retail demand is softening, with their Red Book survey off its peaks and back to average levels since October 2023. That is a notable drop from the November expansion. There were two American factory PMI surveys out overnight. The widely watched ISM one contracted. This is a turn from an expansion and is not unexpected, but the size of the shift was. New order flows were weak, and the mood is turning even weaker. The internationally benchmarked S&P Global Market one fell too, and quite sharply, but not yet into contraction territory. But this one reported a big jump, an outsized jump, in input prices, surely a sign of what is to come. Firms were only able to pass on some of that, but even so, that was at a 2-year high too. American job openings in February fell by 194,000 to 7.57 million from an upwardly revised 7.76 million in January, but below market expectations of 7.63 million. Quits fell too as Americans prioritised holding on to jobs they have. And the Dallas Fed Services Survey reported a notable contraction, with perceptions of broader business conditions worsening in March. And that downshift was also picked up in the RCM TIPP Economic Optimism Survey, which was expected to rise but in fact fell in April and to a 6-month low. In China, although still modest, the Caixin General Manufacturing PMI rose in March from February's small positive, with a result that was better than market expected. This marked the highest reading since last November, with output growth accelerating on the back of a sustained rise in new orders and better demand conditions. The EU March CPI inflation rate eased slightly to 2.2%, to a marginally lower level than expected. Lower energy costs are restraining this indicator. In Australia, February retail sales were ho-hum, up just 0.2% from January. That puts them essentially unchanged from the same month in 2024. So after inflation, that means they're at 2.4% lower on a volume basis. And as expected, the RBA sat pat with its cash rate target change yesterday at 4.1%. But once the federal election is out of the way, markets expect them to cut the policy rate by 25 basis points on May the 20th. Global air cargo demand is now coming off the boil as trade uncertainties build. The dip wasn't large, but it is still ahead year on year. But with both the US and European demand now negative on a year-ago basis, and the Asia expansion slipping rather quickly, it won't be long before we're reporting air cargo activity shrinking. Global air passenger demand held up in February, but with the impetus slowing notably. International demand is holding up better than domestic, and the Asia-Pacific region is the best of these. The main weaknesses are in North American air travel. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now at 4.15% and down 10 basis points from yesterday at this time. And the price of gold will start today at just on $3,106 an ounce, down a net $12 from yesterday and off its all-time high. Oil prices a little changed from yesterday at just under $71.50 a barrel in the US, while international Brent price is now just on $74.50 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar is now at 56.9 US cents and up 20 basis points from yesterday at this time. Against the Aussie, we're unchanged at 90.8 Australian cents. Against the euro, we're up 20 basis points at 52.7 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at just under 66.5 and up 20 basis points. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $85,116 and up 2.1% from yesterday. Volatility of the past 24 hours has been modest at plus or minus 1.8%. You can find links to the articles mentioned today in our show notes, and you can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again tomorrow.